Season 22 is well underway, so today we're looking at the infamous Arc Titan build. Now, because of the changes made this season, I could give you a video on the new Eternal Warrior build, but since Destiny plays in the way that it does, I thought I'd give you a build that's very strong, but also has a fun factor to it. In Season 22, we're going back to the Arc Titan HOIL build. See, we're using HOIL over Armamentarium for this season for two reasons. Because of how Armamentarium, aka the Grenader build, works, you're almost forced into using your abilities constantly to have that consistent uptime on your grenades. And second, we have new toys to play with this season. With elemental orbs, we're definitely going to be taking advantage of that. There are a few things that we want to keep in mind if we do want to take full advantage of this build. First up, we want to use our other abilities to power up our main abilities. For example, if we want to throw a grenade at a boss, we want to use our class ability, then our melee, then throw our grenade. With HOIL, we gain increased melee and grenade damage based on how many abilities we used right before. Melees can get an increase of 10% with 1 stack, 20% with 2 stacks, and our grenades gain 20% with 1 stack and 35% with 2 stacks. Since we're getting this increased damage, we're going to be amping up our grenades to the max. And secondly, we want to keep in mind that for this season, we have numerous buffs to our weapons, ability damage, and ability recharge. So proper rotation to maximize would be to use our abilities, then use our weapons, then pick up elemental orbs and throw them. You don't have to run this rotation, but it will give you the most bang for your buck.
More bang for the buck.
And finally, we're choosing HOIL, which is an exotic chest piece. We can still do the infamous Curse of the Falling Star swap when we go into a boss phase. Remember, if you find this video helpful and you like seeing build videos and other Destiny 2 helpful content, leave a like on the video and consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. Looking at the super and the abilities. For the super, we're going to take Thunder Crash. Thunder Crash is definitely better if you want to take this build serious and do the most boss damage or champion damage. However, you can run Fist of Havoc if you're just trying to have fun or doing easier content. This build does give a lot of super energy back, so you can be an ad clearing machine with Fist of Havoc on. For our abilities, I'm taking Thrusters. They have a quick cooldown and offer more movement. Plus, this will go great with our armor mod Powerful Attraction, making it easier to pick up the orbs that we create. If you're in harder content or finding it more difficult to survive, consider using Tower Barricade instead. For our powered melee, this time I'm going with Ballistic Slam, and for two main reasons. First up, it gives you 3% super energy per enemy hit, and second, honestly, it feels good to fly in the air and slam back down, knocking back any enemies close to you. Now, if you like not having fun and only being serious, Thunderclap or Seismic Strike are definitely better. You can use Seismic Strike on unstoppable champions to stun them, or for general play, Thunderclap is great. But for this build, I'm trying to have a blast, so Ballistic Slam it is. For our grenade, of course, with this build, we're choosing the Pulse Grenade. Not only does it do the most damage, but it creates ionic traces, giving us back more ability energy, which leads me into the aspects. First up, Touch of Thunder. This buffs our grenades. For pulse grenades, now they create ionic traces and deal more damage over time, making it so that we can output even more damage as well as get back more ability energy. We're also pairing this with Knockout, making it so melee attacks start health regen, and they'll also make us amplified. And also keep in mind, when you are running Knockout, any unpowered melee can count as a powered melee after you critically wound an enemy. This is going to be key for some of our mods later, and an easy way to get amplified. Alright, moving on to the fragments. First up, Spark of Magnitude, making it so that our powerful pulse grenades have an increased duration. It's just another layer on top to make our grenades even that much stronger. I'm also going to pair this with Spark of Shock, now making it so our arc grenades jolt targets. Not only are we getting that extra AoE damage, but this is going to add an intrinsic anti-overload. And because now our arc grenades jolt targets, I'm also pairing this with Spark of Ions, meaning when we defeat jolted targets, we create ionic traces. So now, when we throw a grenade at a target, it creates an ionic trace, jolts them. If it does kill them, it's also going to create another ionic trace. This also pairs well with our grenade, but more importantly, it does pair well with jolt shot weapons, since they can jolt targets, now creating more ionic traces for us, giving us back even more ability energy. And last up, I'm taking Spark of Resistance, making it so that when we are surrounded, we're more resistant to incoming damage. This extra 25% damage resistance feels nice when using Ballistic Slam and flying into a group of enemies. It lets you be a little more carefree. Alright, let's take a look at the mods. For our stat mods, first up, I'm taking Resilience, and I'm going for 100. The extra 30% damage resistance is key for surviving in higher level content. Plus, it does lower our class ability for a Titan, meaning we're going to be able to use our thrusters even more, giving us back even more ability energy. Next up, I'm also taking 100 Discipline. This does lower our cooldown for our grenade a ton. Our grenade's going to do a ton of damage and give us back more ability energy, so it's going to be awesome to throw as many grenades as we want. And for the third, I'm also taking Recovery. This is going to give us a quicker health regen, which is nice since that we can start our health regen with a powered powered melee blow, it's now going to regen even quicker. All right, for the armor mods. For our helmet, I'm taking ashes to assets. This makes it so our grenade kills grant us super energy. You can use this or hands-on. Both are good since we'll be using our grenades and our melee roughly equally. I'm also going to take heavy ammo finder. This is going to give us more heavy ammo. It's not necessary, but I do like having that added bonus of extra heavy ammo. And then I'm also taking harmonic weapon siphon. We do want to be using arc weapons, and this is now going to make it so when we get rapid kills with arc weapons, we're going to create orbs. And orbs are going to be the fundamental portion of this build to make our build that much stronger. For the arms, first up, I'm taking momentum transfer, and I'm also going to pair this with impact induction. Now this means whenever we deal damage with our melee, we're granted 20% grenade energy, and whenever we deal damage with our grenade, we're granted 20% melee ability energy. Both do have a 7-second cooldown, and because we're using HOIL and wanting to use both of those abilities consistently, this offers us a way to get both back very quickly. This is also nice since whenever we do use our grenades, it creates ionic trace both on the initial damage and on kill, meaning that just with getting one grenade kill, we get 25% grenade energy, 45% melee energy, and 25% class ability energy, plus the added recharge rate from HOIL, meaning you can cycle these two very easily. And finally, I'm pairing it with heavy-handed, making our powered melee final blows create orbs. Since we have a way to get a powered melee even when we don't have our melee charged, we can use this to basically create infinite orbs, but use at your own discretion. Alright, for our chest mods, of course, we're going with the classic 3 resistance mods, though I recently found out that concussive dampener isn't as strong as I thought that it was. So this time I'm choosing arc, void, and solar, or I'm going to be doubling up on a certain element depending on the threat or the activity. See, I thought concussive dampener would mean that an enemy like a boomer knight shoots an AoE missile at you and you'd get the damage resistance no matter what, but apparently not. You only get that damage resistance if it's not a direct hit, meaning if they hit you in the chest, you don't get that extra 15% damage resistance, hence why I'm choosing 3 elements. Alright, moving on to the legs. First up, I'm taking absolution. Orbs reduce cooldown of all of our abilities by 5%, and since we have easy ways to create orbs, and we are using HOIL, which not only powers up our abilities, but also increases ability regen, we're gonna want to cycle through our abilities pretty much consistently, so having a base 5% for all of our abilities is very nice. I'm also pairing this with 2 weapon surge mods. This is gonna give us an increase of 17% weapon damage with our arc weapons. It is a HOIL build, so we do want to use our abilities and all of them a decent amount, but with this season, you have ways to use your weapons, so why not give them extra damage added on top? Alright, moving on to the mark. First up, I'm taking bomber. This reduces our grenade cooldown when using a class ability by 12%. This is a nice added little bump in our grenade charge whenever we do use our thrusters. Not only that, but whenever we do use our thrusters, we're going to pair it with powerful attraction so that we collect nearby orbs, and again, those orbs, each of them are going to give us an extra 5% ability charge, which is going to bump all of our abilities back up. And lastly, since we are using surge mods, we're also going to take font of restoration. This is going to give you 30 recovery whenever you have armor charge, which should be consistently. I like this 30 recovery since I can try to aim for roughly 70 recovery with my build, and this would mean that I now have 3 100 stat in resilience, recovery, and discipline. This also works if you do have lower recovery to help bump it up to a more acceptable region. So you could now focus on strength instead of recovery if you wanted to. Alright, let's take a look at this seasonal artifact so that we can see what mods can help power up this build even more. Column 1 and 2 aren't super important, so choose whichever ones you want. Taking a look at column 3, we want to take elemental orbs arc, making it so that when we get arc weapon final blows, we have a chance to create an arc elemental orb. Alright, in column 4, we want elemental fury, communal pickups, and refreshing pickups. This now makes it so that elemental orbs deal more damage to stun champions. When an ally uses our elemental orb, its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, and we get bonus arc weapon damage. Plus, when we pick up an elemental orb or a tangle, we're granted ability energy to our least charged ability. In column 5, we want monochromatic maestro, so that we use our weapons to buff our abilities and our abilities to buff our weapons. This is a 10% buff that lasts for 5 seconds. And I'm also choosing elemental embrace, which gives you 50 recovery and 50% arc damage resistance when you're amplified. Since this season has a ton of hive doing arc damage, this is huge since our damage resistance stacks with our chest mods as well as our fragment. Alright, let's take a look at weapons for this build. We do want to use our abilities often, but since we can easily amp up our weapon damage and we gain the ability to create elemental orbs in the process, we do want to use our weapons pretty often too. First up, in the primary slot, I like to choose a heavy hitter. Something like Wither Horde is great for damage on bosses as well as general ad clear. If you don't want to use the exotic slot, something like New Pacific Epitaph, which is the GL from the new dungeon, is a good option. It can roll with Demo, which is going to give us more grenade energy, and also makes it super easy to reload, since we want to throw our grenades fairly consistently. In the energy slot, something like Forbearance is the best option for ad clear by far, but I like to take an arc primary with this build to generate more arc orbs and orbs of power. Something like Cold Heart does do decent damage and creates ionic traces, but they did just nerf double special, so if you don't want to use an exotic slot, you don't have to, but it is a decent option. Here are my top picks for our primaries. First up, Nation of Beasts. This comes from Last Wish. It can roll with Dragonfly and either Bolt Shot or Explosive Payload. Kind of depends on if you're going for more weapon play or ability energy. For all these weapons, if you want more ability energy, run with Volt Shot. If you want more weapon damage, use the other damage perk. In this case, Explosive Payload. Oversoul Edict from Crota's End is also a great option. It can roll with Demo and Sword Logic or Adrenaline Junkie. Not only is this going to give you more grenade energy and easier to reload, but Sword Logic and Adrenaline Junkie are perfect for builds like this since they amp up damage to the max. I'd either take that roll or I'd take a roll with Enlightened Action and Volt Shot. Enlightened Action is going to give you more reload, and since Volt Shot requires a manual reload, it's going to pair perfectly with something like Volt Shot. And Volt Shot does create those ionic traces, giving you back even more ability energy to all of your abilities. Another great option is the Aikilos SMG. It's a great all-around weapon and can roll with Feeding Frenzy and Volt Shot, but you can take any other primary with Volt Shot so that you can create more ionic traces. If you do want to focus more on gunplay, then Volt Shot definitely isn't necessary, but it does definitely help generate more ability energy. Alright, moving on to our heavy. I do also want to take an arc in this slot since we are running the arc surge mods. So first up, I'm choosing Hothead. It's still an amazing rocket for putting out massive damage, and this can roll with Demo. And since we have numerous ways to get our grenade back very quickly, you should be able to reload this weapon with ease. Another good option could be Song of Irut, which is a machine gun from Crota's End. This can roll with Rewind rounds or Reconstruction, and I'd pair this with Bait and Switch, though it can also get Cascades Point, which might be good, but I haven't tested it yet. Or you could choose to take Thunderlord. It's still a very good option for easy DPS phases. It's not the best, but it definitely is consistent. This build offers a ton of fun, while at the same time still being able to keep up in a ton of categories. We can do massive boss DPS by hot swapping our exotic. Plus we can do even more damage with how easy it is to amp up our grenades and our weapons. We create a ton of ionic traces, elemental orbs, and orbs of power with ease, which will funnel back into our build, giving us more ability energy and more weapon damage. We also get high survivability since we can start health regen on a melee kill, and we intrinsically get more damage resistance and recovery just for being amplified. Since Season 22 is Season of the Witch and has a ton of hive dealing arc damage, this will definitely be a build that I'll be using throughout the whole season. Let me know in the comment section what other builds or videos you're interested in seeing. Let me know your thoughts of the build. What would you change or how would you improve it? That's it for me. Peace out.